battle inside, okay? On that base OB, you gotta show help in the court. He's locking the rails, you gotta be there to tag.
Alright, a bit of an easier video to produce this time around. Siena basketball starting off their Fort Myers tip-off with a campus game, and then they will continue next week with the on-site location over in Fort Myers. This is the third time Siena men's basketball has played a marathon over in Florida. They previously played in the ESPN Events Invitational, as well as the Sunshine Slam. Siena started off with playing against Xavier. This was the fourth meeting between Siena and Xavier, and unfortunately the losing streak against Xavier continues. Siena lost 55-80. You should have figured it was a Big East team, so much stronger advantage over Siena. Gerry McNamara, who's very familiar with the Big East, obviously he coached at a former Big East school, knew what he was in for, as well as Reed Ducharme, who is a transfer from Xavier. Ducharme had a career-high 15-point performance for Siena, which lost 27 straight true road games at high major opponents. The Milton, Massachusetts native was recruited by Gerry McNamara to play at Syracuse. He ended up going to Xavier instead, where he only played 5 games.
You could have seen him struggling. Ducharme, his first basket in this building against his old team.
Yeah, a little far be it for me to get people upset during the holidays.
You are the last person that would ever cut a line. Airball, by the way.
Yeah, Ducharme is feeling it a little bit. It's not easy to come back to a place that you made home, and all the pressure is on because you want to perform well in front of...
Pretty much every opponent tried to do that against Siena this year as Ducharme goes inside and floats it home. Grabbed 3 offensive rebounds in this first half. And this time they cash in.
Justice Schultz to get a layup, and his ability to be able to move without the basketball. He's got such a quick release. He's certainly put his imprint on this game. Coming back home to Xavier, where he spent a year, only played in 5 games last year. And when you come home, you want to play well. I thought he was playing a little tight early, and then he loosened up and started to make shots, but he's been superb on both ends of the floor.
McKnight gives it up. Fremantle left alone. Siena got away with it.
Yeah, didn't quite get that one in his hand properly.
Well, Wilmoth, who was called for that foul, is another guy. He played at Butler.
Yes.
And there's Ducharme finding his spot in the mid-range again. 15 points on the night.
Gerry McNamara said he was very pleased with how the Saints performed this time. The Saints were aggressive, of course. They at least were sticking with them. They even went on a 7-0 run. And Xavier, of course, well, taking the ball away from them was just something you totally would expect. As far as the Musketeers go, coached by Sean Miller, Marcus Foster had 12 points, and all Big East preseason second team Zach Fremantle had double figures for the Musketeers, 33-4 advantage in fast break scoring. They are also 5th nationally in assists and 6th in assist to turnover ratio, and they are also the 25th ranked team in the country. Another player who's no stranger to the Big East, Miles Wilmoth, who played for Butler, also had a decent game. He didn't have a lot of scores, but at one point he took the ball from Justice Schultz and dunked it in.
First foul on Hughley. Nice slip inside, leads to the dunk for Wilmoth.
And Gerry McNamara also took some more roster rotation into effect. Kyle Winters had some minutes, as well as Braylon Smith, and Devin Bradford had his first point of the game.
Then they able to hit that little pull-up jump shot. They've got some really good offense off of that here in the first half.
The freshman big man Bradford in the book. First point of the night.
He's got a nice looking touch.
I should also note that the game was called by a man named Connor Onion. Yeah, seriously. His last name's Onion. Wonder what the co-host's last name was. Maybe it was Chive. Speaking of Connors, Connor Fenlon, who was one of the commentators for the radio show for Siena, was reminiscing about his time playing against an Ohio team in 2009 when he was on the Saints team that beat Ohio State in March Madness in double overtime.
9.1. Got to get Hasbrook heads to the right corner. The jumper from Moore. Yes! Wow! 2 to go. Ubilis, 7 seconds to go. 3-pointer. Oh! Hutchins! Double order!
Don't you wish Siena could be like that again? This brings us to dissecting the Fort Myers tip-off. The 2024 edition will have Siena play in the Palms division alongside Miami, Ohio, Mercer, and Jacksonville. Meanwhile, the bigger schools in the Beach Division are Michigan, South Carolina, Virginia Tech, and of course, Xavier. The games will begin on November 25th with the Palms Division games happening first on PassTheBall.com, a website I have never heard of. Siena will play the first game, followed by the Jacksonville-Mercer game, and then the winner will play the winner, loser will play the loser. Siena will hopefully be able to get past Miami of Ohio, which is a college in another MAAC conference, just remove 1A. Miami is nowhere near the number one team in the conference, but they still have an advantage that the Saints have to take on. Meanwhile, in the Beach Division, Michigan will play Virginia Tech, South Carolina will play Xavier. Those games will be on FS1. And likewise, the Palms Division will have their championship and third place game on November 26th, and then on November 27th, there will be a third place game for the Beach Division as well as the championship. Aside from the Siena loss, Miami of Ohio lost to Michigan 67-94. That was the first game of the tip-off played. Mercer lost to South Carolina 72-84, and the surprise, Jacksonville beating Virginia Tech 74-64. So if Siena plays Jacksonville, this is going to be something I'll have to keep my eyes out for, because if they're beating an ACC team, that probably will send some shivers down their spine. We'll have a lot more coverage of that in next week's show when we cover the entire Fort Myers tournament as it happens. Which brings us over to our fast forward. After playing in the Fort Myers tip-off, the Saints will head back home to the Northeast. They will be in northeastern Pennsylvania to play Bucknell, and a homecoming game for Gerry McNamara, who is from Scranton. Gerry McNamara went over to northeast Pennsylvania over the summer to renew a contract with Bucknell, a team that Siena is very familiar with. Bucknell and Gerry McNamara will come face-to-face at Mohegan Arena, which will see its first Division I basketball game in almost 20 years. Also, side note, Mohegan Arena will be the home of the new Wilkes-Barre area arena football team, which the Albany Firebirds will be playing next season. Also, stay tuned for an Albany Firebirds schedule show I'll be doing with Ben Nelson at some point. All right, before we get into the women, I want to highlight Sarah Hamilton, my friend who did the season preview video with me. Sarah recently did an interview with Valencia Fontanelle-Passon, who is currently sidelined once again due to some injuries. And Sarah has a full report on Valencia available on her YouTube channel. Please go give her some love. She did this for class, and I think she did a great job. The question is, can Terry Primm get them back on track? Well, the good news is Teresa Sapala is back. Sapala actually led the Saints this past game, 15 points in her season debut, which is our first key takeaway of the game. This was the 9th meeting between the Siena women and the Fordham Rams overall. Fordham was actually part of the MAAC conference during Siena's very first season before they left to join the Patriot League. Let's also throw it over to the mic'd up segment because Terry Primm had some nice things to say about Sapala during the press conference.
He's a great combination of a kid who works extremely hard. She understands the system. She understands the big picture too. I think that helps her every day in practice. She works as hard as anybody I've ever seen. And she does it with an amazing attitude. So we couldn't be happier to have her back.
The unfortunate reality, though, is that despite having Sapala, you're still going to have some issues. And Terry Primm learned that the hard way when the Saints were outscored by 39 points. The Saints had a rough start at the very beginning, trailing 23-15 at the end of the first quarter. And unfortunately, as soon as they started to come on, Fordham was already leading. And, well, literally adding insult to injury, Terry Primm only had 7 players available. Miriam Traore did not make the trip, as well as Zoe Richardson and Anaja Brown, who did not play either. The Saints made 61 field goal attempts, 22 threes, 17 free throws, and 22 free throw attempts, which were game highs for the team this season. And one more negative thing to talk about here. This was a snapper for a winning streak against Fordham. The Saints, up until this game, had been 8-0 against the Rams. So, not a very good ending to a storied history between two New York rivals. As for Fordham, it was the 5th time under their head coach that they had to win by 25 or more points. The key player of the game was graduate student Taylor Donaldson. Donaldson had 19 points and surpassed her 1,000th career point. As far as the Saints positives could go, Zariah Price, the freshman from Alabama, had a rebound high for the team so far this season. She had 7. Well, unfortunately, I have nothing good to say about this otherwise because, well, Terry Primm is currently 0-4 in his head coaching career, and it's not his fault, and it's not the players' fault either. However, it is not looking good as we head into a month into the season. And Terry Primm remains optimistic, and as a fan, I try to remain optimistic as well. Obviously, these guys watch the videos. The best thing I can say is to continue practicing, keep the injured players healthy, keep the team's mindset healthy and sharp, prepare and try to put on their best foot forward, because this is basketball after all. There is no time for quitting. And maybe there would be a Hail Mary that one of the injured players will come off the bench as the season progresses and return, but as far as that's concerned right now, that isn't going to happen, and we just got to stay patient and hope that there will be a victory at some point for Terry Primm in his first season as head coach. Maybe the victory will be on Tuesday. The Saints will be traveling over to Connecticut to take on the Central Connecticut Blue Devils. Tip-off is at 4 o'clock over at the Dietrich Gymnasium. You can watch the game on the NEC Front Row or listen to the game on 88.3 The Saint. It will be the first time in just over a decade that the Saints have taken on the Central Connecticut Blue Devils. Their last time playing them was in Loudonville on November 19th of 2014 when the Saints beat them 79-57. All right, here's MLG Dude's Minute.
Thanksgiving is a special time of year. We give thanks to all the people who have touched our lives, as well as the plenty of sports that touch our lives currently. Football, basketball, hockey, and also college basketball. If you want a lot of college hoops to look out for on Thanksgiving, look no further. There are tons of different invitationals going on, as well as some big-name games, including Duke versus Kansas on the 25th. It'll be 24-year-old Hunter Dickinson versus the 17-year-old Cooper Flagg. And in my opinion, he should wait in going into the NBA draft because, look, he's 17, his body's still growing. In contrast, Hunter Dickinson, I can't believe he's staying at Kansas. Is he just not wanting to do the NBA? It makes no sense. Regardless, if you really want some good basketball matchups, go on to ESPN, Fox, check your subscriptions, get new subscriptions. Get the family together and cheer on your favorite teams. This is what it's all about. And as for me, well, I'll be munching on some turkey. And also, watching Siena basketball over in Florida, which I really wish I was at right now. That's all.
It may have been a quiet week for Siena, but it was definitely not a quiet week for the MAAC as they have their third week of non-conference play just wrapped up, beginning with Rider, who took on former Siena coach Fran McCaffrey and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Should have known they were going to lose. They lost by 25 points, but they redeemed themselves with a game against Bucknell, 57-53. The Manhattan Jaspers, playing against Fairleigh Dickinson University, another series game with them, losing to the Knights 82-85. And another close contest, this one they actually won, over West Point. St. Peter's playing St. Elizabeth, they beat them 116-51. And I checked the box score of that. The D3 school did not lead at all during that game. Somebody else who hasn't been leading, Canisius, now 0-7. They took on 3 teams this week. First Western Michigan, followed by Maryland and Brown. The Maryland game was also a blowout. Fairfield, also on a losing streak. They played the Drexel Dragons and lost 61-67, followed by a Connecticut showdown against the Yale Bulldogs, 66-91. Quinnipiac playing Navy, beating them 73-64, and then losing to one of the biggest America East teams to make a threat to Vermont, UMass Lowell, 70-80. More wins continue to go into favor for the Marist men. They had a New Hampshire showdown versus Dartmouth, 75-62, and the New Hampshire Wildcats, 54-49. Merrimack also had 3 games. They lost all of them. First against Ivy League champs from 2023, Princeton, coached by Mitch Henderson, 57-68, followed by Rutgers and Butler. Mount St. Mary's losing to Georgetown, 51-79, and beating the Delaware State Hornets. Niagara playing against 2 MAAC conference teams. We just brought them up earlier. Bowling Green, 68-76, and Kent State, which is coached by UAlbany alum Rob Senderoff. Iona Gales losing to West Virginia, which just recently switched coaches over to the great Darian DeVries. They lost 43-86. Sacred Heart losing to Brown by 19 points and beating Central Connecticut. Moving over to the women, Rider played LaSalle and lost by 1 point, 54-55 in a rather low-scoring game. Manhattan Jaspers playing against Hofstra and beating them 62-49. And they also beat Fordham 65-58. With Manhattan on a roll right now, Siena might want to watch out. St. Peter's playing against James Madison and losing by 41, and then losing to FDU 50-67, which is a losing streak as well. Canisius losing to St. Bonaventure 63-66, and losing to the University of Buffalo 50-62. The Central Connecticut women had a stint against another MAAC team, Fairfield. They soundly got beat 82-54, and Quinnipiac beating Cornell 56-47. The Marist women had a losing streak with the same numbers. They both lost to the Stony Brook Seawolves and St. John's 49-69. Merrimack playing against the Yale women 50-45 and beating them, as well as a game against NJIT 87-76. Mount St. Mary's losing to Bucknell 47-63. Niagara, unfortunately, not anything going their way either. They had to cancel a game against Cleveland State. Iona, their only game of the week, a loss against the College of Charleston, and SHU beating Monmouth 63-56. Well, that's a look ahead at the Siena basketball show. Hopefully you enjoyed, despite the losses. But, hey, we can't all be winners now, can we? To close us out, I want to give a huge congratulations to team manager Alex Peters. Peters, who is a junior at Siena, has been managing the team since he started, and he decided to overcome his fear of flying when the Saints took the planes over to Florida.
All right, your flight crew wings for your very first flight. Put it over here. I'll try my best not to hurt you.
Look at that.
All right, now
Let's see it. Let's see it.
Now we're good.
There we go.